And welcome everyone to our weekly chat about the Power 36 and the AP poll. Get to our rankings momentarily and some of your questions over the next few minutes. First off, big hot topic in college basketball that we address on the March Madness 365 podcast that will be posted on Tuesday morning are conference tournaments. Should they happen? What form will they take? Well, I think that is still to be determined. I think you will have some teams that opt out that think they're already in the NCAA tournament. But the big quandary then will be for the conference tournaments themselves. Will the conferences want to play them without some of their marquee teams? The reason these may have to happen, you've got television windows on ESPN and Fox and the other regional networks or conference networks. So you don't have the games, you lose some of the revenue from that. There's also corporate sponsorships where leagues rely on the conference tournaments at that time of the year. Now, the money they need to have is the men's tournament. Cannot have 2 years in a row without the men's tournament. That's not just for men's basketball. That's for the entire NCAA. That is from fencing to field hockey. You need the men's basketball tournament. It is imperative. It is the money driver for all of the sports. So it has to happen, and I think it will, obviously in Indianapolis in the month of March and early April. On the podcast, we've got a very special podcast letting all of you know now. I will be joined by the head coaches of the top two teams in the country, Mark Few and Scott Drew, Gonzaga and Baylor, undefeated competitors for the national championship, among others. We'll discuss a litany of issues, including whether or not they can figure out a way to play that game, or should they? Or should we wait to see if it happens? That's an interesting discussion point. Also be joined by Belmont's Casey Alexander. They're 16-1, which is amazing because that means they've played 17 games. And you've got teams like St. Louis that are playing their first A10 game this week, and it's already January 25th. So crazy that Belmont's been able to play 17 games, which is great. They had their COVID issues early and have been able to deal with it, obviously, the last couple of months. Belmont, by the way, gets into my poll at the bottom at 36. So I give some love to the Belmont Bruins. So that's all on the podcast. And my Katz ranks this week will be dealing with my top 10 midseason Coach of the Year candidates. Yeah, the two guests are on the list, Scott Drew and Mark Few. Where? You'll have to wait and find out. All right, so before we get to some questions, first off, top three have remained the same. Interesting that Michigan is 4 in the AP poll. Did lose at Minnesota, so they did not drop at all there. I dropped them a few spots. Alabama, I've moved way up. Texas and Houston, all in the same range. Virginia, we're basically even there. It's interesting. Iowa, all the same. Florida State, I had them too low. Now I've got them, I think, in the top 10, which is good. Missouri, I admitted, big mea culpa on my part. I took them out after they lost at home, I think, to Tennessee, and they should have been back in last week, and that was an omission by my part. I've already admitted that. My mistake. I own it. They beat Tennessee. Bam. Look where they are. 12. And they are in the AP poll at 12. Look at that. Great minds think alike. How about that? Boise State, where are you? Getting no love in the AP poll. I don't know what I have to do to get Boise State's attention for the rest of the country, but they deserve it. Other notable ones here as I look back and forth on our screen. I debate on Tennessee, how far to drop them. Looks like we're in the same ballpark. Kansas is interesting. Lost 3 in a row at 15. I dropped them down to the back part of the top 25. You lose 3 in a row, you can't just not suffer any consequence. I'm high still on UCLA at buzzer. They lost to Stanford. Oklahoma, good to see them in there. Ohio State, we're all on the same page. West Virginia, I had moved up as well. In the top 20. So we're all pretty comparable there. Looks like Minnesota almost hit it right on. St. Louis, it's interesting they put them that high. So that's interesting. All right. So let's take some questions. Albert appreciates that I've put Boise State in this group. Doug wants to know if Missouri's overrated. boy, I get flack for not including Missouri. Now they're overrated for being in the top 15, so I can't win there. Brian, do I have an AP vote? Interesting, Brian. I had one when I was in newspapers in the 90s when I was first starting out. Then I went to ESPN, and I did not have one the entire time I was at ESPN, in large part because Dick Vitale had it. I don't know if they had another one at ESPN, but and I have not been asked to be back on. I certainly would if I was asked, but I have not. So that's an interesting question right there. All right, how is Kansas ranked 15? Asks Rob Lewis. That is my question as well, Rob, because I put them at 24 after losing 3 straight. How good is Houston, Clay? Look, they may not lose again the rest of the regular season. Losing Caleb, though, was a big hit. So I think that prevents them from being maybe a Final Four team. Could they be a Sweet 16 Elite 8? Sure. Andy, do I have Rutgers in my top 50? Yes. I debated putting them in the bottom of the heart of this poll. So, yes. There and there. Mike wants to know any word on Gonzaga Baylor. Well, Mike, listen to the podcast tomorrow and you'll get an answer. That's called tease. Who am I taking, Jacob? Florida State or Virginia? I'm going to lean. Ooh, this is a tough call. I'm going to lean Florida State to win the ACC. Matthew, is Illinois still a possible Final Four team? Yes, of course. They're definitely still a possible Final Four team. Michael wants to know if UConn can get back in the rankings. I think they can. Not having book night is a massive blow to them. Rough week last week. But now they got to go to now they host Butler. So can they get back? Yes, but they're not the same team, obviously, without what I would argue would be the Big East Player of the Year. If I have to pick a dark horse, asks Steven, who would I go with? I wouldn't call Florida State a dark horse or West Virginia. Well, I mean, even though they're ranked in the top 10, Alabama would have to be a dark horse to win the whole thing. Boise's not good enough to win the whole thing. Dark horse. Just trying to think of other teams that are deeper down. I don't see West Virginia winning the whole thing, so I don't know. That's a hard call. Can I get back to that? Can we keep revisiting that question? So Robert wants to know what's up with Maryland's road wins. Maryland has an intriguing profile right now. Road wins at Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin. They got to just win some home games, and they're going to be in the tournament. But they got to win some home games. Very bizarre. But they've got road wins that no one else does, so that's great. Emily wants to know why Tennessee dropped so far. Well, they lost games, and they lost games at home. And the margins were bad against Florida and Missouri. So I think that's fair, to drop them to that degree. Oops. Double screen. Don't know what happened here. Sorry. All right. Is USC a dark horse? Asked Jamie. Yes. I think they are. Oh, Taylor wants to know why I think Florida State's better than Virginia. I think Florida State has much more an upside, more athletic. I think they actually defend better than Virginia. Virginia's had a couple of outstanding offensive games, but we need to see more consistently. Where does Kentucky rank? Not here. The win over LSU was a great reset for them, but they still have a long way to go. Eric, what's up with Duke? They're just not what we're used to. They don't have star power that we thought they would have. Their veteran guys have not played as well as I think they could have. So I would say that at this juncture, they're on the bubble and maybe on the wrong side of the bubble as of Monday the 25th. I'd have a hard time putting them in. Doesn't mean they can't get in. Good chance they can, but they got work to do. What do I got to see from the Bonnies, Joel? Well, the Bonnies got in there at where did the Bonnies get in here? Oh shoot, our our overlay changed here. Sorry about that. While I've been talking to you, so we got to put this new one up. I don't know what happened there. Um, that was weird. So let's go back to the Bonnies at 35. Um, so the Bonnies, right now, the best team in the A10. See if that holds. Their game against St. Louis will certainly tell us a lot. Tanner wants to know the quad system. Quad system is, and I see if I remember these numbers correctly. I think it's 1 to 75 is quad one. That's your net ranking. And if you beat a team in that ranking, then you get a quad one win. But there's a different number for, it goes up for road win versus a home win in each quad. I just don't have them memorized right now, 1 through 4. Obviously, you want more 1 and 2 quad wins to move along. But essentially, it's taking the net rankings from a 1 to 75, 76 down, and so on to figure out, whether it's a quad 1 or quad 2 win. Syracuse or Virginia? I'm going with Virginia. Jared wants to know if Michigan will stay at 4 after 2 weeks. So look, Villanova stayed in the top 4 while they were on pause, so no reason to believe Michigan won't stay up there. Let's see. Let's take maybe 1 or 2 more. Is Nova the biggest threat to Gonzaga or Baylor? Yeah, I mean Villanova and Michigan. But when we get there, when Michigan's back. Power 36. How can they have Michigan at 7? Well, Michigan lost at Minnesota. That's why, Matthew. You can't not penalize them for losing the game. And then Minnesota lost to Maryland. So that is why. Iowa, Illinois, pick Skyler. You will see that pick or read about it in the pod. Jeff, I appreciate the kind words. We don't have any negative people on here this week. I like to see that. Positive. Alex, I'm going to leave with this one here. You got the last word here. My 1 and 2 seeds, okay? Gonzaga, Baylor, Villanova, Michigan. Those will be your 4, I think. Then your 2s will end up being probably Alabama, Houston, Texas, and I still feel like Iowa's going to get there, but it could be Florida State. But I'm going to lean Iowa. I think the difference between 2s and 3s is going to be razor thin going forward. All right, a reminder, March Madness 365. Only place that you will see and hear from the 2 top coaches this season, undefeated teams, Gonzaga's Mark Few, Baylor's Scott Drew, talking about each other's programs, each other's teams, conference tournaments, whether or not they'll play, the NCAA tournament, and what it's been like to coach through a pandemic. Also, Belmont's Casey Alexander, 16-1, played 17 games. My picks for the mid-season coach of the year, as well as my picks of the week. All of that on March Madness 365. Appreciate all of you. Thanks for all your engagement. Digest all the rankings and everything else we have on all our social media platforms. Stay safe, everyone. We'll talk again next week.